Hey guys, my name's Keyan Houshmand, and in today's video we're going to be checking out the brand new plugin from Neural DSP, the Soldano SLO-100. Let's have a look. So if you guys aren't familiar with the SLO-100 from Soldano amps, it's widely regarded as one of the greatest high gain amps of all time. And it's been used many times over across many high profile artists all across the world. So when you take that and combine it with Neural DSP's technology, you should have a really good representation of one of the greatest amps ever. So let's check it out in a mix, but before we do that, if you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you see or hear. And if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely think about subscribing. If you guys want the tabs, stems, DIs, drum tracks and all that good stuff, the demo songs like the one you're about to hear, definitely check out my Patreon, and all my affiliate links, all that stuff is going to be in the description below. But enough of that, how does it sound in a mix? So here it is, the Soldano plugin from Neural DSP, and as you can see, I'm using my Jackson Instrument Sewer USA loaded up with bare knuckle Juggernauts, and we are tuned to drop C. That's what it sounds like when you load up the plugin, so pretty cool. And if you've used any other Neural DSP plugin before, you'll notice that the layout is pretty much exactly the same, which is really good. So on the first page, you get your compressor, overdrive, so you get two different types of overdrives in this one, which is really cool, and you get the chorus as well. Going onto the amp page, you get the amp itself, which includes 3 channels. So right now we're on the crunch channel. I can flick it to the clean channel. And then if you want the pure high gain that the Soldano is mostly known for, you can switch to the overdrive channel. Pretty sick. Moving on, you got a 9-band EQ, which is really cool, and I'll showcase how I use that a little bit later. Then you got your standard cab section that's included in pretty much every single Neural DSP plugin that's guitar related. You get 2 different microphones that you can choose from, and the list of microphones are the Dynamic 57, 421, the 414, Condenser 184, the Ribbon 121 and the Ribbon 160, as well as having the option to load in your own custom IRs, which is something that I do very often. But for this video, I'm just going to stick to the in-house cab sounds for sure. And then once you've picked your microphones, you can choose to have 1 or 2. You can turn one off if you like. For this one, I'm using 2. You can set the position, the distance, and the level that the microphone is at from the speaker, which is really cool, as well as panning them left and right. And then last but not least, the effects page, which has a really nice delay and a reverb. Other little features within the plugin that are worth noting are the input gain levels, so input and output, the gate, which is a really strong gate. Something that I really love is when a good plugin has a good gate, and this one pretty much reacts the exact way that I want a gate to react. You got your input mode, so you can either have it in mono or stereo if you're going some really lush lead or like clean type tones. And then you got your presets here, and I've made a couple presets myself, which I'll get into in a little bit. If you want to get really nerdy about it, you do also have MIDI functionality, which I'm not going to be showcasing because I don't have anything to showcase it with, but that option is there if you do want to run like an external rig or something like that, as well as having a little handy inbuilt tuner as well. So before we dive into the presets that I made, let's just have a look at the amp first. So as you can see here, you can choose between the overdrive and normal channels. And when you select the normal channel, it opens up a couple more options here. So on the normal channel, you can choose between the option of crunch and clean, and you have a bright switch as well. And by changing it, you can see that it changes the preamp and master knobs as well. So when you're on the normal channel, it's on the left. When you're in the overdrive, it's on the right. And then it's pretty much stock standard from there. You get your bass, mids, and treble knob, your presence knob, and the depth knob, which kind of controls like your uber low end and how like thick it sounds. I really like the depth knob on this amp. Most amps that have a depth knob, I don't really touch it because it gets way too floppy, but this one I actually like cranking it up a little bit. I have done a lot of plugin review videos, and I never really touch on the aesthetics of the plugin, but that's one thing that Neural DSP gets right every single time, and I don't mention it enough. The overall aesthetic and just like the fluidity of moving between pages and the way everything looks is absolutely top notch, and is the A-grade standard for any other plugin company out there in my opinion. So now let's dive into some of the presets that I made. So as you can see here, this one is called Typical, and I'm pretty sure you can guess why. Basically your stock standard modern metal or gent type tone, at least the way that I see it anyway. As you can see here, conservative on the gain, pushing bass up a little bit, scooping out the mids just a touch, pushing treble and presence to make it a little bit brighter because I do like my tones to be pretty bright. Master all the way down, not all the way down, but down enough so you don't get much of that power amp saturation. And then I've turned the depth down just a little bit. I was A-Bing between which overdrive to use, and I like the Soldano overdrive too, especially when you flick it on this like high boost setting, I'm pretty sure that is, so that's really cool. Moving on to the EQ, I have actually changed the EQ a little bit. I don't usually do this, but I figured that I'd use the most out of the plugin while it's here. Pretty conservative, but it does sculpt it just ever so slightly, so I've turned down 250 Hz just a touch, just to get rid of some of that mud. Dipped down just a little bit of 1K at negative 0.8, but I've pushed up 2K at 0.8, so I'm kind of compensating for that. I've pushed up 4K just a touch, which I don't usually ever do, but for some reason I really like the way it sounded. And that's pretty much it. So I'll do an A-B between the EQ on and off. So EQ on. And then EQ off. So as you can probably tell, when the EQ is on, it just makes it a little bit more brighter, a little bit more aggressive, whereas when it's off, it's a little bit more thicker. Going on to the cab section, the two microphones that I'm using are the Dynamic 57 and the Dynamic 421. The 421 is kind of in there just to fill in the gaps. As you can see, the level is pretty low, and the 57 is doing much of the heavy lifting. This is where I've placed the microphone at, and it's pretty stock standard for any type of amp sim that I'm using pretty much. And then obviously no effects are turned on because it's a high gain metal tone. And this was the tone that you heard in the beginning song, one hard pan left, one hard pan right, but this is the tone that was used. Moving on, we have Silky Lead, which as you can tell from the name is a really thick, creamy sounding lead. Not too much happening with this one. Fast compressor on just to like catch up with the playing and make everything nice and even for solo tones. The overdrive 2 again, but I am turning up the drive just a little bit just to get some more saturation out of those single notes. Again, nothing too crazy happening with the amp. I have pushed up mids a little bit and treble considerably, but I have turned presence down because I didn't like the presence high end on a lead tone, but I really like the way that the treble knob was sounding for lead tones, making everything nice and just lifting it up a little bit as opposed to, you know, making uber high end sound super loud. These are the EQ settings that I've got. Without the high boost, it sounds really thick. So having it on just kind of counteracts that and kind of makes it cut through the mix just a little bit more. Cab section, I've gone for a ribbon 160 and a ribbon 121 just to get some nice thickness out of the cab. And then effects, we have the delay and reverb on, obviously, because it's a lead tone. Pretty conservative settings on both of them, but that's just to give it a little bit of a backing when you're playing. I don't want it to be too washed out. I guess we'll go through like the settings on both the delay and the reverb. It's pretty standard, so you can have your ping pong delay. Right now I've got it on, and you can sync it to the tempo that's in your DAW. So right now it's on 130, but I can turn that off and move the tempo wherever I want. I can even do the tap tempo as well, so when it's off, it kind of just adjusts to wherever I'm tapping to. If I want it really slow, just tap slower. But for now I keep it synced. The tone, so you can adjust the actual tone of each delay repeat, whether you want it to be really bright or really washed out. Feedback, so how much it actually delays, and a mix, so how loud it is, how loud the delay repeats are. And then on the reverb, it's much the same. You got your mix, so how loud the reverb is and how much it's actually taking over your tone. The tone of the reverb, so if it's bright or if you want it to be dull, you can turn it down. I like having it just around there. And then the decay, so how long the reverb actually goes for. Moving on, we have a preset called Nightmare. This is just like a layer preset. I did use this in the beginning song, it's in there, and it's pretty much just really cranking the crap out of the amp. So as you can see, overdrive pedal is on, drive all the way up, level all the way up, tone pretty much all the way up. Treble and presence are relatively high to kind of get that like ear screeching type of sound. And then with the EQ, most of the low end's cut out and it's just kind of boosting the high end, taking out some 4K so it doesn't get too ear picky. That's just the general EQ curve of most of these like layers that I put in demo songs and stuff like that. But I'm just doing it in the plugin because it's here. Two 57s to make it super screechy and bright. One of them right directly over the speaker, and one of them kind of drifted off to the side a little bit, just in the standard position that I'd have it in, just for a normal tone. And then delay and reverb on, delay almost at 50-50, so the repeats are almost just as loud as the playing at first. And then the reverb is pretty much cranked to the point where I can still hear my original playing, but the reverb just kind of washes over it straight away. So that's just cool if you want to add like a little background lead layer to your songs and stuff like that. And then the fourth one is in the room spank. And as you can tell from the name, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're using the crunch channel. We're using the overdrive pedal as well. Level not all the way up, so level's at halfway. Tone is still relatively bright, drive all the way off. A compressor just to kind of glue everything together a little bit more. As I mentioned before, crunch channel, pretty conservative settings, nothing too crazy happening, just making it a little bit brighter, just to kind of bring out those like telly or strat type tones, even if you have a humbucker. Right now I'm using the split call setting on my guitar, so that does help a little bit. And then just to kind of give it like the feel that you're in a room, what I've done is I've kind of boosted the uber low end and the uber high end, so you won't hear it as much, but when it's off, this is what it sounds like. When it's on, you can choose to have that on or off. I like having it on when I'm just jamming. Nothing too crazy happening with the cab section, just a couple 57s, but what I'm doing with the effects is what really gives it that like in the room type sound. So reverb is on, very low, dark reverb with the decay at minimum, and then the delay is in there, but it's at 1/64th note, so it's super quick, and you won't actually hear it when you're playing. But what it does when you have it on that quick is that it kind of just trails everything you're playing really quickly. And just kind of makes it sound like it's bouncing off something, kind of like as if you were in a room and it was bouncing off the walls in a room. So when you turn both of them off, it's very dry. Turning them on. Just kind of makes everything trail just a little bit and kind of gives the illusion that you're in a room. And then last but not least, we have Dream. So this is like your standard, the super dreamy, clean preset. Again, the effects are doing most of the heavy lifting with this preset, but just to give a little bit of context, compressor's on, just to kind of make everything a little bit more even. Chorus is on, but it's not really doing that much. The mix is relatively low, just to kind of make everything seem a little bit wavy. Clean channel on the amp, obviously, nothing too crazy happening. I've dipped mids just a little bit, but again, like pushing up presence and stuff. Depth to make it more fuller, and then kind of make it react with the reverb a little bit more. Nothing happening with the EQ, I've kept it dead straight, and again, nothing too crazy happening with the cab section either. It's just a 57 and a 421 in the exact same configuration as the typical tone. But then the effects are doing the heavy lifting, as I mentioned before. So you got your reverb pretty much all the way up. Very similar to the Nightmare preset, where it was pretty much like washed out. And then the delay is pretty much almost the same as well. But when you have it on the clean tone, it kind of just makes everything travel just the right amount of time. Right now I'm on the neck pickup. I'm on the split coil setting now. So there you have it, that's the Soldano plugin from Neural DSP. As you can see, pretty much exactly what you would expect from Neural DSP, just a really, really great sounding plugin with really great intuitive UI. And I quite enjoyed pulling as many sounds as I could just from the one amp, as opposed to like an archetype plugin from Neural DSP, where it's a bunch of different amps and cabs. This is just one amp, one cab, it's a Soldano, you know exactly what to expect when you get it, and it sounds phenomenal. So there you have it, that's the SLO-100 from Neural DSP. I personally really like the way this amp sounds. It's just a little bit different from everything else, and it's a really nice flavour of high gain. But let me know what you think. If you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you saw or heard. And if you want to see more of this stuff, again, definitely think about subscribing. Massive thanks for the guys at Neural for letting me try this one early. I really, really appreciate it. Again, as I mentioned before, if you guys want the tabs, stems, DIs, and drum tracks to the demo song that you heard at the beginning of the video, definitely check out my Patreon, and all my affiliate links. All that stuff will be in the description below, as well as a link to Neural DSP's website where you can trial out the SLO-100 for free. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao.